Welcome to the Mitre10 Cup Round 10 wrap-up, watched by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and yes, it's a new hat. That's the old one. See? A bit old faded, but there you go. So we've got all new, new and shiny. Isn't that cool? So this one's going to be a little bit longer than normal, as a couple of the interviews I have lined up to play you are kind of a bit longer than usual. So please do bear with that. I've got some great interviews towards the end, some really interesting insights. And also, if you're watching this before the All Blacks announcement, you may also get a hint as to someone who is going to get selected. So stick around for that. So how did the round 10 go? Round 9 go. Everyone's played 10 games. Obviously, by the end of this one, this is the final round of the regular season before we hit the old finals. We start off with Southland losing 8-56 to Auckland, meaning that's over 2 years now since they've won a game. Really poor season, really disappointing season for Southland there, obviously. It's been a tough old time for them, and we heard from them last week, I think, during the interviews. So not unexpected. Auckland needed that one if they were going to stay, or if they were going to finish top of the pile. Now, top of the pile is important because not only does it get you the home semi-final, but it also gets you a home final if you win that semi-final. Tasman then saw off Hawke's Bay 29-0 to maintain that pressure on Auckland, going top of the table temporarily and until the end of it. And Taranaki finished off a poor season at 10-34 to Wellington. So Wellington securing themselves the fourth place and a semi-final berth. Okay, they have to travel to either Tasman or Auckland. We'll possibly clear that up at the end. But very good result for Auckland overall, considering they got, very good result overall for Wellington, considering they got promoted last season. So they've come up and they've been not only competitive, they got themselves in that top four, which is very good. Taranaki, obviously the season started off so brightly for them. They had the shield. They were looking forward to challenging, and they've lost the shield and come bottom. It's been a very poor season for them under their new management. Bay of Plenty then was the first surprise of the weekend. Well, as far as a shock, beating Northland 38-35. Bay of Plenty really could have been one of the contenders this season, but I think injuries have been their problem. So losing both their first and second choice 10s has not helped them at all. A lot of these squads do run pretty thin, so if they do get injuries, it can have a big impact on them. Having to borrow a hooker from Canterbury as well shows you kind of how deep, how they struggled with those sort of things. Northland now, that's 2 losses on the trot going into the finals. They knew they'd got themselves in the finals. They were going to travel to whoever finished top of the table. 2 losses, a big loss to Waikato last weekend, and then losing this one as well. Not good preparation for Northland. Waikato then lost the Ranfurly Shield to Otago 19-23. So Otago take the Shield into the summer. Asked on YouTube as to how the Shield works. So very quickly, you defend the Shield for home games during the regular season. It's not put up for the playoffs. They also, it's generally put up for the pre-season games against Heartland Championship teams, which is the level below the Mitre10 Cup. As well, it adds a bit more luster to those sort of games. So Otago will take the Shield through to the summer, as this is the last regular season games. And let's just hear from. This is what I got interviews for. Let's first off hear from Matt Fadders as to his thoughts on this.
Here we are post-match with Matt Fadders, and as he says, he's absolutely knackered. But we chatted in Auckland, and this was a game you were definitely targeting.
Absolutely, you gave me a cheer in Auckland, but the boys are knackered. That was a huge effort for us, and it was a definite wind out there. So that second half was a huge defensive effort for us, and just thankful that we got a few tries in that first 20.
Yeah, it's when you actually started to put the ball to boot is when you got the territory to get those points in that first half. Whereas initially you guys were trying to play a bit too much ball with ball in hand, maybe.
We've probably done it all year, but it's probably been successful, and I think that's probably what led to our success as well in that first 20. We played width to width, and it we breached them at times, and they gave us mismatches later in the phase count. So I think it definitely worked. It just, I mean, come about 60, 70 mark, you're pretty beached. But I mean, in a game like this, it's pretty huge. I mean, there's a lot on the line, so there wasn't a lack of motivation to get through to the 80 with being on the top of the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of that second half, you were just 1 point clear, and as you say, a lot on board. You've now got yourself a home semi-final under the roof and the shield for the summer. A very nice reward for this trip up north.
It is. I mean, it's massive for the union. Just hopefully we can get a bit more of a following and more bums on seats at the games. And I mean, we haven't got a shield defence this year, but it's huge for the union. And I mean, to get it home semi, it's massive as well. I mean, I think we're playing Hawke's Bay, and they tipped us up last time we were down there. So I mean, that still hurts. So we're excited to enjoy tonight. Definitely enjoy tonight. It's not often you every day you win the Ranfurly Shield. So yeah, we'll enjoy that, and then we'll look to Hawke's Bay later in the week.
Yeah, so yeah, big night tonight here. Fly back home. Know that you've actually got as you say, be able to actually stay at home under the roof, which is what you want with your own crowd. So congratulations, and go find yourself a seat and a beer.
Appreciate it. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Bye.
So as you can tell there, Matt Fedder's very, very tired at the end of that game. Defensive effort was definitely in order for them. There was only one score each in that second half. They only got 3 points. So the first half was key for them there. Now let's hear from the head coach of Otago.
So here we are after Otago. Sorry, what's that? Otago have taken the Ranfurly Shield from Waikato with Ben, head coach. In that first 10 minutes, you guys played a lot of rugby, managed to find some space out wide, but the points came when you started kicking, didn't they?
Look, yeah, sometimes you have to kick when things are on, but we always have an attacking mentality, and it came off well at the start. Obviously, Waikato made some changes and addressed that and tightened up, so it forced us to kick a little bit. And no, they're a good side. We had to fight pretty hard for it.
And they came back just before half time. And obviously you're going to be playing into the wind in the second half, so what was the message in the sheds at half time?
Win the game.
Nice and simple.
Yeah, look, the spirits are really good in the change room. Half time messages were, let's just keep trying to turn the pressure up. There's a little switch sometimes you have to turn. But it's just about keeping that invisible energy going. And there's some smart decisions in the end there.
And you've been a side that have been getting lots of intercept tries, but this none today. But big defensive effort in that second half with only just 3 points to your name.
Amazingly proud of the guys for defending a team which is strong in those close quarters. To defend those close quarters so toughly was a credit to their testament and their drive and their mettle of our boys. So I'm really stoked for them. So yeah, it's a pleasure, and hopefully it'll transfer going forward too.
And we know that Samu here is practically the leading try scorer off the back of line-out mauls. But you guys have done a lot of work during the week against that, because you did a fantastic job today against the line-out maul.
Look, we had to be on against those guys. You give them any sort of opportunity and they take it. So we did a good enough job, and we expect if we were to play them again, we expect them to come pretty hot in that area.
So we're already looking forward to by the sounds of things. So next week, under the roof against Hawke's Bay, another challenge, and looking forward to that.
Well, it certainly helps you book in accommodation on a Labour weekend, so it's one job for the manager, which he's thankful for, so happy enough.
Great. Congratulations on getting the shield, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So happy for a couple of jokes there from them. Obviously very happy to be taking that shield and into there. I say some very big defensive efforts. Waikato have been known for their line-up mauls, and Otago stood up especially in that area. Let's also have a quick listen to Roger Randall and his point of view from the Waikato side.
So here we are post-game, where Waikato have just lost to Otago 19-23. They did for you guys early in that in the first half. You obviously went back behind to some of their kicking, but they came back into it well in that going right up to half time.
Yeah, they started really well, as we knew they were going to. But we showed our resilience and our mental toughness to get back in the fight, and right at the end there, we just about could have snatched it. So it was a little bit disappointing around our discipline at the end there, and not nailing those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, discipline was, and also execution was a bit of a problem. We had a few drops balls in mauls at lineouts, and they definitely did a good job against what's been a strong lineout maul you guys have.
Yeah, they definitely did pretty well there. Both teams were under a lot of pressure defensively and made a few uncharacteristic mistakes, but it was just a lot of pressure there, and it's a good precursor for what the semi-final is going to bring. So it's come a week early, and they played really well. So we'll have to be on our game next week against Northland, who had a pretty good match against Bay today. So we'll take the positives out of today. It always hurts, to lose, and especially lose that treasured shield. So well done to Otago.
Yeah, it's been 6 games on the trot where I've been talking to you after wins. It's the first time I've ever talked to you after a loss. Also, you guys kind of knew what the semi-final was going to be already. Was any element of perhaps the guys just not focusing as they should have done for it?
Not really. It was a little bit off. I think half a metre on most things we done today, and a lot of that's due to pressure. So, you've got to give credit to Otago, and challenging for the shield's not hard. It's actually pretty. It's easy to come and throw everything at it. Got nothing to lose. So, challenging for it is a lot easier than retaining it. I can tell you that. Exactly.
They were challenging for it. B, they also were trying to they had to win to get a home semi-final, and they had a lot on the table today. Yeah. Whereas, in reality, for Waikato, like I say, they already knew what was coming. So, I can see how it could have subconsciously been a bit of an issue.
It's just different mental. Like you can drum up you get out the win and all that sort of stuff, but ultimately, there's different pressures with trying to retain it and going out there. You always say you're going out to attack to win it. It's not ours, all that jargon. But I've been on both sides a few times, and it's definitely quite nice going in and trying to ambush people.
Yeah. So now, a tough week preparation for Northland. Obviously, a big win against Northland up in Whangarei, but so they're going to be hurting coming down for that semi-final.
Yeah, well, it's a different game. It's a semi-final, and it's different than what was riding on last week. We were pretty much guaranteed a semi-final, so they'll come with nothing to lose, same sort of attitude, and we've got to come and match that and up it even more.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you next weekend for the semi-final.
Cheers, thank you.
So there you go. Northland coming to Waikato is going to be a big game for them. They've got to step it up. So Northland really hurting after that result they got in up at home. So you're going to say they're going to be definitely coming back at them, and Waikato are going to have to be definitely be much more focused than they were. Counties then lost to Canterbury 14-19, perhaps a bit closer than we expected. And then we had Battle of the Bridge, Auckland versus North Harbour. This one, a big one for Auckland. They needed to win this one to get back above Tasman, get that home semi-final, get that home final. And obviously North Harbour looking at trying to beat the big brother. Bit of a disappointing season for them, as you'll hear in a second. And it really was this beginning of the second half where they kind of lost out. But here is Tom Coventry first, the North Harbour head coach.
First of all, I thought Auckland were good today. I thought they were physical at stages and were able to bully us at various times of the game. I thought we probably had opportunities that we didn't take so well, and the momentum changed quite quickly just after half time. Our season as a whole, probably where we're at the moment is probably reflected by the fact that we couldn't beat the 4 top teams. So what are we, 5th in the competition? Probably sort of sums up where we're at the moment. We are unable to take the big moments in various stages during the course of the season against the top 4 teams. But it's not, for Harbour, we've consolidated in the competition. I think we've gained a bit of respect, which is what we're about right when I started with the team, and that's one of the goals that they put forward was to gain respect in the Premiership, to prove to the New Zealand public that they just weren't going to be up and down, which has happened to a few teams over the last few years. So we've consolidated our position, but we need to be better, and our learnings from this year's competition will hopefully help the young boys move forward. And hopefully we can consolidate on our position and look to make a top 4 next year.
How do you take that next? Well, obviously, how does the union take that next step?
Continue to grow what we are growing. I mean, we've had a change of philosophy around how our wider training group and our academy or our pathways program operates now. Our under 19 program is they've finished third in the last 2 seasons, which is a good sign. We're now starting to produce players that can come out of our club rugby straight into the Mitre10 Cup. Denny Drake, Lua Lee, for example, 2 boys are out there today. So they've come through our program, through our pathways program, and into the Mitre10 Cup. We've probably been guilty over the last few seasons of having to recruit from elsewhere. We've had some good recruits, but they don't always stay and hang around and be part of the fabric of the province. Even though we appreciate the efforts that they put in, we're trying to grow our own. And let the public, I suppose, see that we're trying to get guys like Dylan back, Chris Eves back, Shooter back. They all come back to the province where they grew up and played their junior rugby, went to school here. That's another one of our philosophies around trying to grow the region, growing our players, growing our people. So I think we've done that, and I think we just need to continue to make sure that we invest in the depth of our club rugby and also the young boys coming out of our schools.
So it's good to see he's giving us a good insight into it's why I introduce us about the game, especially the smaller unions and the positions they're in. Sure, North Harbour is part of Auckland, the Greater Auckland, which is the biggest city in New Zealand, but it's still one of the younger and smaller provinces in the Mitre10 Cup. He keeps on going on to give us a bit more information.
You think it shows a sign, I guess, that you couldn't make the semis this year, but that's almost a disappointment compared to where the team was maybe a couple of years ago, that not making the semi-finals of the top tier is disappointing where you used to be, I suppose.
Yeah, I was just talking to Dave Ward before. He says, a few years ago you probably would have been happy just to consolidate and stay in the competition. So now we're disappointed about not making a semi-final, which is a sign that we're growing. We're not there. We're not consistent enough to be there this year, but that's our challenge for the next couple of seasons, is to make sure that the group of guys that stay, the core of our team, will be together. There will be some movement. I think in Mitre10 Cup, for Harbour's perspective anyway, we lose about 30% of our men every year to greener pastures, or to injury or to retirement. But that's our job, is to make sure that we keep replenishing the retirement or the movement with good players coming into our program.
Would you like to see Dylan named in the All Blacks?
And as you can see, the high turnover of players in the Mitre10 Cup means that the coaches have to keep trying to rebuild the culture, rebuild that, and try and keep that core that does that. If you look at some teams in Europe, for example, Exeter and Saracens, they'll turn over perhaps 10% of their squad, not 30% of their squad per season. So it's a big difference in kind of the level of turnover that the teams have down here.
Squad tomorrow?
Yeah, I would like to see Dylan named. I think he's a worthy candidate. I thought that he's been a consistent performer this year for us. I think he's been rewarded with the Dwayne Monkley points over the last. I don't know if he would have got those points today, but over the last 3 big performances that he's played for us, he's been picking up points. So I think people see his worth. He's a tireless worker. He's good over the ball. He's a good defender, and his work rate and his ethic, I think, suits what the All Blacks are after. And saying that, I thought Dalton was good today as well in the opposition as a young boy coming through the scene. So there's, as usual in New Zealand, we tend to grow sevens quite quickly, and we've got some good choices. I think the All Blacks, they've got some hard decisions to make around who they put into that team.
And as you can see, and you'll hear more going into the next interview as well, one of the big topics down here is the All Blacks squad announcement that will be happening tomorrow, and who is going to be getting the extra slot, because obviously Sam Cane has broken his neck and is clearly out for the rest of the season, and also Matt Todd is tied up with his Japanese contract, so whether he'll be available or not is unclear. So yeah, a lot of talk around what that announcement is going to be tomorrow.
How long until you switch focus into Blues, or have you already sort of started that?
Well, the next couple of weeks are pretty telling. Most squads are probably already filled. The Blues, there wasn't a lot of movement from this year. next season. A lot of the contracting was already done. So there's a few holes which we'll be trying to fill. Semi-finals and finals is always a good time to do that. But Super Rugby franchise are pretty aggressive now. They usually make those decisions well before this time of the season. But we've still got a couple of spots available, so we'll be looking to fill those over the next couple of weeks.
And he goes on now to give us some really good insight into how players move up the chain from club to Mitre10 and to Super Rugby. So really great to hear that great that he was happy to give us his time and also talk about these other sort of wider topics.
Anyone from your Harbour squad you'd like to bring across the way?
When you coach a provincial union, you become a little bit biased, and that's part of the nature of the job. You form strong relationships with these guys. You spend a lot of time with them. Look, they've been, most of my boys I'd like to pick them all, but it's my job now to put on another cap and to make sure I'm critically analysing everyone and making sure that I'm just as tough on my boys as anyone else that we put into that team. So, look, I'd pick all those boys if I could, but obviously that's not going to be able to happen. There's been some really good standout players in our group, and I think some of them have big futures. I mentioned Lua Lee today. Lua Lee's been a policeman, and Lua played most of the game at Loosehead Prop. He started almost all of our games at Loosehead this year. Replacement to do that and play against Super Rugby props. It's a pretty fair effort. Danny Drake came on today at block for Ben Nene, who's been involved with the Blues off and on during the course of the year. And Danny's a student. He's played all his club rugby for Northcote. Today he gets to, in a half a footy, he gets to rub shoulders with some guys who have been playing Super Footy for a long time. So those guys are coming through our program and they're getting opportunities to play. So they make you proud when you see those guys being able to handle themselves at that level. Not quite good enough yet, but they will be in time.
So do they take inspiration from someone like Carl, who's come through from club rugby to Super Rugby contract?
Yeah, look, Carl's a great story, and he's been fantastic for our region. Shivers only 12 months ago, he was rolling around with our physio doing exercises which would keep him off his feet because he was coming back from a plate in his leg. Matt Wenham, our physio, had him doing bear crawls and spider crawls, anything to do with him not able to be on his feet. And Carl went through our Pathways program. So he didn't play much for Takapuna initially. He did most of his work through some of the games that we'd organised with the boys playing in the Harbour jersey. And he eventually got to play 3 or 4 games towards the end of that club season. He got himself back on the field for Mitre10 Cup, and he was a force scrummaging during that last season. And he's a pin-up boy for us all. Hard work gets you to the top. He's such a modest and humble bloke, and it's just great to see people like him go through a pathway which is necessarily not traditional. No academies, no pathways programs, just hard work. And I think that's testament to him, but also hard work that's gone on all around the people who have been helping, physios, club coaches, our environment, our own coaching staff, put a lot of work into him to help him get to where he's got to. Yeah, we use him as one of our poster boys.
So, you touched briefly on Dalton. Are you able to elaborate a bit more on what you see in him, and obviously you'll be working a bit closer with him next year?
Yeah, look, I think Dalton's first and foremost he was in the thick of it today. He's good in the close quarter play. I think close to the goal line he's pretty one of the better defenders. Gets himself down nice and low, comes forward off the line well. He's pretty accurate with his defensive work. Gets back to his feet quickly. He's back in the game a lot, and he complements a lot of the line breaks that are made. He's often on the shoulder, and he's smirking around the support play. So I think he's a big prospect, and he's a good size. He's physical. He's good. He's got line out ability as well. So he ticks a lot of boxes.
Do you see him as a 6 or a 7?
Oh, look, I think he's been playing it where he's playing at the moment. It suits him. I think for any loose forward, being able to play in more than one position does help. Particularly when you've got long seasons and there's attrition. So at the moment, I think he's playing in that position. He's holding down well. The good thing about Dalton is he can play 6, 7 and 8. But I think he did a pretty good job today.
Cool. With your Blues hat on, contracting-wise for the super squads, do you think there is enough scope for outstanding players in the Mitre10 season to get a super place? I'm thinking like guys like Robbie Abel who sort of come from nowhere.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there enough scope though? Is there enough room in the super squads at the moment for form players and emerging players to come through?
Yeah, I suppose it's not common now for the squads to have a lot of movement, but you remember the All Blacks have got a Northern Hemisphere tour. They play a game in Japan on the way south, north, and then they play 3 tests, and then they come back and have 12 weeks off. Yeah. So that's the opportunity for guys to come on interim training contracts and make up the numbers. Carl did that with the Chiefs, as you remember, and they get their opportunities probably through that pathway more than a direct invitation to pick up a contract. There'll be a few of those. Each franchise will pick a couple, but the interim training contracts, you've got to be fit and ready to go at the end of November, and you'll roll through 4 or 5 weeks of pre-season before Christmas, and then obviously the pre-season starts pretty early in January, first week of January they're off again. So those players that you mentioned, the Mitre10 Cup players, they'll be expected to come in and fill those holes and give opportunities to play. I'm not too sure they're running the Duco 10s next year. I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's happening. So they'll be involved in some of the pre-season football, and that's how I think we rely on building our depth, obviously through injury over the course of the season. We get to see guys play for the Blues development, which I was a part of this year, the Blues 20s program. Making sure that anybody that's played good Mitre10 Cup gets rewarded with opportunities to be in those teams. Because it's a long haul from now until club rugby starts again in April for some of these guys. So, unfortunately, the high performance program begins in November and it finishes at the end of Super Rugby. And guys who've had long seasons with club at Mitre10 Cup, they don't get much of a rest. So they have to go around again, really. We rely on our system hopping players out. So it'll be no different for this season, considering there's 20 weeks on the trot. Some of those guys I'm sure will get to play and will probably feature early doors. Okay, thank you guys.
Some great insight in there as to how players come through the pathways in New Zealand, and how basically the top Mitre10 players will get training contracts and then basically and then when injuries happen, that's when they have to take their opportunities. Final interviews now. We have got from the Auckland side.
Are you pleasing to finish at the top of the premiership table at the end of the regular season?
Yeah, it is. I think we control our own destiny really after the events of counties in Canterbury, and so we just made sure that we got the job done. So I'm very proud of the boys, and obviously the result looked after itself.
And now it's Wellington again up here this time.
Yeah, up here, and we'll start focusing on them tomorrow. But I think it's quite an achievement for this particular group. Obviously, a lot of new faces, a lot of new dynamics involved, and I think we'll celebrate that and make sure that we get around it very quickly for tomorrow. But it's a great occasion for a lot of these players, especially for young squad.
Given the events of 12 months ago, I know you weren't there, but in terms of the thrashing that they got dished out, how big is it to come back and win a game like this?
Yeah, I think winning was really important, and we knew that Harbour was going to come. I don't have a history around the Battle of the Bridge, and we approached it that way in terms of respecting the tradition and the history of it, but making sure that we fix it and do what we need to do to get the result, and especially for the bigger picture. And also, this team prides itself on our performances, and the last time we were at Eden Park, we lost. And I think it was very important that we regained the faith of the people and our Auckland supporters. So I think that was most important as well.
Do you put a lot of stock on finishing top of the table?
Do I put stock?
Does it have a lot of meaning for you? To finish
it is for me personally. It's a new job for me, and a new group of players, and a new group of to achieve top of the table. The next 2 weeks or the next 1 week, whatever it is, will look after itself. But to get to the top of the table and something I'm very proud of this group. Not only the players, the management, but there's a lot of stakeholders and people that have helped me forge this team and put it together. And most importantly, I'm very proud of the leaders that have made this team the culture that it is. And what you saw today is a reflection of what we do behind the scenes. So I'm very proud of the team.
Anything that from today that you think you sort out or fix up?
No, I've got enough coaches. I think they can look after the rest of the games. My job was just to get us to the top of the table. But we'll have a look at it tomorrow. I'm just going to really enjoy this moment. It's a feat that's very difficult, I suppose, with the type of campaign that Mitre10 is. Short turnarounds, injuries, the depth, you're challenged, and I'm just very proud of these players. And I think it's best you hear from the players. I think they're the ones that have to do it. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and they're at the forefront of the performances every week.
You weathered a storm early on. You then sort of came back into it, but you let them get a try. Well, not let them, but they came back just before half time. What was the message at half time? Because you guys came out and really took the game by the scruff of its neck then.
Dalton can explain.
I think we just came in and I think we have the right balance of leaders and soldiers in the team. I think that was our downfall last year. Everyone had a voice and got a confusion in the team. But there were clear messages at half time. We knew to calm down, stay in the blue, and go out there and execute. Yeah.
Lama, is there anyone you're expecting to lose when the All Blacks name their squad tomorrow for the next couple of weeks?
Keep yours open.
Let's just say I can't answer that for now, but yeah. That's an awkward question, so I won't even try and answer that right now.
I don't want you to spill the details, but in terms of coming now into playoffs and potentially losing players, how do you reset your campaign for the semi-finals and finals with those, whoever they might be?
Yeah, and it's unfamiliar territory, I suppose, for me as a leader because of this team. We haven't obviously played finals before, and I'll draw on the experience of some players and obviously some coaches that I've got in place. How we prepare this week. I suppose it's the old cliche, it's another game, but I think for me personally it's really getting engaged of the players' physical and mental welfare now. As you see, we try to make changes as early as possible in the second half, but still you're still trying to win the game properly and have pride in our performances. So we'll assess all those situations, All Blacks, potential All Blacks, injuries, and then also physical and mental fatigue. So I'll answer that problem.
You've invested a lot of time and faith in Harry Plummer this year, and he seems to be sort of stepping up as the season's finished. He was very good today. What were your thoughts?
Yes. Fortunately, I have a bit of experience of developing young first fives and young players. I've done it all my whole career, and I think Plummer is another player that needed a lot of, well, not a lot, but needed some experience around him to help decision making, to make sure that he's not burdened with everything, and to make sure that there's a game plan and a game that actually fits his style. And that's why I'm very proud of him. It's one thing to support a player, but it's another thing for them to do the homework and to do the leadership that's required to guide this team around. So he's been supported by some very good leaders, including the guy sitting next to me, because defensively, Plum has to make sure that he's got faith in, and obviously this fella next to me. So very proud of him, and also very proud of the players that have supported his success this year.
Obviously, the young man on your left had a pretty big shift. So, do you have any thoughts on Dalton's performance this Harbour?
He might go weird, eh? I've got a lot to say about Dalton, and I won't mind saying it with the media here. There's a lot of talk around sevens in the country.
Here we go.
And when you look at his stats, I've never seen a seven that tackles the way he does. And 22 tackles, 24 tackles, and 20 tackles again, 3 games in a row. That speaks volumes on the type of defender he is. But I'm very proud of him because he's also in charge of our defence. And when he speaks, most importantly, his actions speak more than anything else. So, I can't speak enough of Dalton, the way he's developed as a seven this year, forced through injury obviously, but just different parts of his game, offloading, the tries that he set up today, and his link play. And the funny thing is, he's still very young, so he's got a long way to go. So his name is very particular to a question that was asked earlier, and I'll let you guys figure out.
Cheers, man.
So there you go. If Dolce doesn't get announced for the All Blacks tomorrow, I will be extremely surprised. But there you go. Let's finish off the interview.
Dolce, obviously you changed your entire front row, but the scrum was a good attacking platform for you guys today. You must be happy with your forward pack as a whole.
Yeah, we are. Like at the beginning of the year, we talked about our set piece being one of the forefronts of our team. Playing off our set piece wins you games. So I think the coaches that have our lineouts, Philo and Machine, that has our scrums, they're doing a bloody good job at it, and it just they're giving us the tools to succeed. So it makes our job easier. We just got to execute on what they say, and you saw today that we just dominated this scrum. So yeah.
Dawn, how much do you feel you've grown over this season, and how much have you learned from the coaches you've had in this environment?
Oh, I thought I've learned heaps. Hearing these coaches were named for this campaign, everyone was talking about how we're going to go forward, we're stepping forward, and I think they've done a bloody good job, to be honest. To see where we were at last year, everyone heads down, and we were about to get relegated to now where we are now. It's just goes to show that these guys are putting a massive effort in, and the good thing is that everyone in the team is following them. We're listening, and we want to learn off them, and the experienced coaches, so got to give a massive shout out to them. Yeah.
What about your game yourself? How much do you feel you've improved over the season?
Oh, heaps. I think.
Just answering the question there from Arsenal in the chat there. I don't know what time the announcement is tomorrow. I would assume it'd be around about lunchtime. That's quite often when they do those sort of things.
I was a bit rough coming into first of all Blues, and then into this campaign. I felt like I've learned a lot off Philo, the forwards coach, but just around my game, I knew the qualities of 7, tackling and stuff, but they were showing me, different ways of how to get to rucks and stuff like that. So I think I've learned a massive thing of these coaches. Yeah.
Dalton and Lama mentioned a lot of talk about sevens in the last few days. Have you sort of thought about that at all?
Nah, not really. This campaign's my first priority. I want to win for Auckland. This is my home, so this is going to be my first priority. Yeah.
How's your sternum/rib? You had a bit of a knock there. You feeling a bit uncomfortable?
Nah, it's all good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's all good.
Alama, just on your hooker, Robbie Abel, who seems to just pop up and weird.
And sorry, at that point I ran out of memory on my phone. But kind of great insight there from, and perhaps a bit unguarded, which is nice to see from them, understanding what wasn't quite so right last year. Too many voices, not enough clarity of what they were supposed to be doing. And it's kind of interesting that Waikato, which got relegated, Auckland, who were very close to being getting relegated, both of them have new coaching setups. Both of them have managed to turn things around very quickly and be very successful this season. So, great to have first off Tom Coventry give us an insight into how a lot of these things, how the sort of some of the selection of players works going through, and very interesting to hear from these two who giving us a bit of an insight of that obviously sounds like he's off to he's going to be off with the All Blacks, but also so nice to get that sort of behind the scenes and less guarded, I say sometimes, comments that we get. To round things off, the last game of the of the thing was Manawatu beating Southland 38-26. I was driving back, so I missed that one. Not a big surprise there. Let's say Southland gone for over 2 years now without winning a game and racking up one of the longer, if not, I'm not sure if they've actually broken the record yet for losing streaks in Mitre10. They aren't anywhere near equaling the longest losing streak in New Zealand. East Coast are up to 6 years now in the Heartland Championship without a win. It's like 56 games or something, I think I read recently. So they're nowhere near that kind of level, but still one of the Northland did rack up a 2-year or a 20-odd game run a couple of years ago, and look where they are now. They're they're consistently hitting the playoffs for promotion, so definitely moving in the right direction. Things can be turned around. So if we have a look at what the semi-finals are, then on Friday night we will have Tasman hosting Canterbury. That's South Island derby. Then the first game on Saturday at 2:35 will be Waikato versus Northland. I'll be going to that game. That's followed up at 5 o'clock by Auckland versus Wellington. Unfortunately, as they're back to back, I won't be able to get up to Auckland in time for that one, so I'll not be able to be at that game. And then finally at 7:30 we have Otago hosting Hawke's Bay. There are 4 Mitre10 Cup teams in the South Island. 3 of them have made the finals, so obviously very well done by the South Island. Now one of those will definitely get knocked out as Tasman face Canterbury, and then you obviously and they will either one of those two will face either Auckland or Wellington, and then obviously Waikato, Northland, and then will face either Otago, Hawke's Bay. If it is Otago that come back to Waikato, then it was an awful lot of noise, an awful lot of singing. I don't think you actually heard it in the background of my interviews, because they won the Shield. That will definitely give plenty of drive for for that game. So, thank you very much. Don't forget to hit subscribe down below. Share with your friends. There's some really interesting interviews this week in the show. Perhaps some of the most, some of the best ones I've had. So please do, let people know about it. And I say I'll be back with interviews with coverage of the Waikato game next week, and also be watching the other semi-finals with a lot of interest.